Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
What's going on, everyone? It is Jaron from Jeranism. I'm back with another live video for you. Should be fairly short. I just need to read this article I just saw, and we can all have a good laugh. Mushrooms on Mars again. Yeah, you heard it here first, or maybe second, or maybe third. I don't know. Hilarious for so many reasons. First off, a big thank you for joining me. As always, I do greatly appreciate it. Now, I've done some Mars videos in the past, and we will look at one of those. Maybe people remember this video called Simulated Mars Environment on Devon Island. Curiosity Images are NASA fakes. In this video, I showed you where you could go to a certain spot here on Google Earth in Devon Island, which is up in northern Canada. Basically, once I searched around, I found some images of this simulated Mars environment. As you can see, it looks so much like Mars. So I've done that video. That link is in the description. If you have not yet checked that out, please do so. It's a pretty good video, if I must say so myself. But yeah, and I've talked about this particular issue here before as well. So we're going to get into that. Let's go ahead and jump over to this article and read from it. Mars rover takes photos of mushrooms growing on the surface of the red planet. This is from the mir.co.uk. Actually, I'll put this in the description after. I forgot to grab that link. Just so you can see where I'm coming from. Let's read a little bit here. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Yes, we're all good. All right, great. So let's read this. It says, the curious shapes seem to be emerging from beneath the planet's surface. New photographs of Martian mushrooms have left some scientists convinced that there is life on the red planet. A new study published in the Journal of Astrobiology builds upon 15 images captured by NASA's Curiosity rover as part of its 2-year mission. This is just hilarious because the thing was not supposed to be a 2-year mission, but it's gone way beyond what it was planned for. But again, with NASA, anything's possible. So as part of its 2-year mission, Curiosity trained its camera on what appears to be algae, lichen, and mushrooms. The photos seem to show the potential life forms growing larger and emerging from the red sands of Mars. See, this is the problem, is that there's actual images of these things being much smaller, and then slowly they grow. So that's called life. That's how life works. Anyway, let's see. Let's continue on. It says, Dr. Regina Das, a microbiologist from Pondicherry University in India, argued that no known non-living force could have produced the apparent growths. We'll continue on. It says many scientists believe Curiosity rover may have captured images of mushrooms. She told The Express there are no geological or other abiogenic forces on Earth that can produce sedimentary structures by the hundreds, which have mushroom-shaped stems, stalks, and shed what looks like spores on the surrounding surface. No, that's because only mushrooms do that, and that happens only on Earth. So hopefully people start to realize, nope, they won't. They don't realize it. They fight it. In fact, 15 specimens were photographed by NASA growing out of the ground in just 3 days. So these things are coming out of the ground on Mars, folks. Give me a freaking break. NASA is yet to comment on the research. Of course they are, because they're in a quandary. You know, they just want to drive around and take pictures of Devon Island. They don't want you to accidentally see that they're taking pictures of growth, of life here on Earth, because then the gig's up. Once people realize, oh, these images are just images of Earth. This is nothing special. This is mushrooms growing on Earth, folks. It happens all the time. Go out in your front grass. You'll probably find a few today. So, of course, they've yet to comment on the research, but the majority of experts involved in the peer review process agree with this mushroom hypothesis. The suspected algae, lichen, or mushrooms growing on the outside of a rock. See, the problem is when you're faking these images from places on Earth, you have to be really careful. You have to make sure that you never accidentally show any plant life. Someone's got to keep it cleaned up. Well, somebody just missed the fact that there's some mushrooms growing on these rocks. It has long been thought that the surface of Mars was uninhabitable. However, it may be that the conditions are better below the surface. They have this Mars rover. Why don't they just drill and check? They got all this equipment. They've got this Mars rover, this rover on a planet. It's just hilarious. There's no remote control craft on Mars, folks. Give me a freaking break. Mars is nothing more than a wandering star. People have noticed it for hundreds, thousands of years. Okay. What's not true is that it's a planet like Earth and that people can live there and that robots go there and that they are remote controlled around and can pick up specimens and shoot with their lasers. No, that's not real. 6 independent scientists and 8 senior advisors or editors scrutinized the report. 3 rejected the evidence and 11 recommended publication after certain revisions. The journal's official position is evidence is not proof, and there is no proof of life on Mars. Make sure people get that. Evidence is not proof. Many people think that the evidence is proof. You know, I got all this evidence that the Earth's a sphere, of course, right? Abiogenic explanations for this evidence can't be ruled out. Other scientists have argued that the specimens are not algae, lichen, or mushrooms, but hematite, a form of iron oxide. All right, so that's basically the story. But again, this has been going on for a long time, and I've actually pointed it out numerous times before. And I've talked about this guy. His name is Ron, like Sean, but R-H-A-W-N, Ron Joseph. I don't agree with a lot of what this guy says because he believes that there's actually a craft on Mars. So what did he do? He went to court, took NASA to court. This was in 2014, here, filed January 17, 2014. And he's claiming that there were images that were taken by the Curiosity rover that showed a little tiny spore growing, and then over the next couple days, it grew. It is a mushroom. It was a mushroom growing on a rock. He pointed this out, but his problem is, well, why isn't NASA going back and taking images of this? Why isn't NASA scrutinizing? They've found life on Mars. Well, of course they haven't found life on Mars. They're not on Mars. So if people remember, I've talked about it before. I emailed this Ron Joseph, and talked to him. One of the things that he stated, and we'll look at this in a little bit, but one of the things that he stated was after he filed this report, and he lives in San Jose, California, which is very near to where NASA has some headquarters. After he filed this lawsuit, he said 2 men in black suits, in shirt and tie suits, came to his door and told him that it was in his best interest to drop the lawsuit. Okay, that's what he was told. And then a few days later, he goes out into his backyard, and as crazy as this sounds, littered all over his backyard were a bunch of mushrooms, which is just hilarious. Who is doing that? Who's taking mushrooms and going and dumping them on this guy? And by the way, this guy is a PhD scientist. The problem with him is he believes that NASA's on Mars. So if you believe that, then of course, when you see pictures of mushrooms, you're led to believe, oh, well, then there's life on Mars. But he can't grasp, why would NASA not go back and investigate this? Why would they not take closer pictures? Well, because then the gig is up. That's what people need to recognize. There is no craft on Mars, period. It's just that simple. Now, again, people can believe what they want. People can believe anything. And by the way, as I always say, do not believe me. Do not trust me. Do not trust this video. Do your own research. If you want to believe that NASA is controlling a remote control car that was supposed to last a year or so, and now every time it comes up, they say, oh, we need another, couple $1 million to keep this thing going, and then they're granted the money by the American government, or, it comes from taxes, people's money. And they just keep perpetrating this hoax that there's some sort of craft on Mars that is receiving and this thing is huge. It's like bigger than a car, and it's running off of solar power from Mars, being controlled by people at their little consoles. Remember, folks, these guys all sit at these NASA consoles, and they respond, and they work with data. The data comes, they don't see anything. So some images come across. Big deal. Who proves where those images came from? Well, they came out of this computer program. The computer program says that the rover sent them. Yeah, but again, you don't know where those images came from. Anybody can put those in and say that they came from the NASA. Not anybody, but anybody who was involved at NASA can do that if they really wanted to perpetrate this hoax, which is exactly what's going on. People just want to believe. They want to believe that there's life out there, that that these planets are real, that one day Elon Musk will go there and you'll get to go with him. You can go there. You can live off potatoes, just like your Matt Damon. It's very easy. So anyway, you can read this article. Again, I'm going to copy this and put this in the description as well, so you can follow on with this NASA lawsuit. By the way, I will check the super chats here in a second. Thank you so much for those who have already sent some in. I appreciate that greatly. It helps keep this channel going. Thank you guys so much. And again, always thank you to my patrons. Without them, this channel wouldn't exist. So anyway, you got this Ron Joseph that's already filed this, and we've talked about it before. We've already said this before. I've emailed the guy and said, dude, do you realize that they're on Earth? That's why they find mushrooms. Of course, he didn't respond to me because it would break his whole paradigm. Everything he's about is everything that NASA says is real, and he just can't grasp the idea of why wouldn't NASA stop and take him. And of course they should. Makes no sense. If there's something growing, imagine there's something growing on the surface of Mars. In fact, you're able to see it grow in several successive pictures. Then wouldn't NASA go over there with their little remote control car, steer it back over there, get its little tool and maybe mess with it and see what's going on there? No, of course not. They don't want to do that. That's not their job. Their job is to make you believe that you live on a sphere and that there's other spheres out there and that we can send craft to them. Tell me this. Why wouldn't there be a remote control car on the moon? This thing takes pictures and everything. Why not just have a remote control craft on the moon? Wouldn't it be easier? But why wouldn't you have that? No, you don't have that. You know, they went to the moon 50 years ago, supposedly, of course, but have never gone back. Of course. You know, it just makes absolutely no sense to anyone who can think. But again, you're free to believe what you want. You can believe in the space fantasy all you want. You can drop your money to them all you want. Keep funding NASA with $56 million a day. And what do you get in return? Well, you get pictures of mushrooms on Mars, but they won't investigate any carefuler. Crazy. This is the another article talking about the man who sued NASA. This is the Ron Joseph, PhD. This is back in January 2014. You can see here where this particular mushroom grew right here. What does NASA say? NASA says that it actually got, this is a rock, and it got ejected somehow from a nearby asteroid hit. Are you kidding me? It's just, the refusal to take close-up photos from various angles, the refusal to take microscopic images of the specimen, the refusal to release high-resolution photos is inexplicable, recklessly negligent, and bizarre, the lawsuit claims. It is all of those things, but when you're taking photos from Earth and telling people that they're from the light in the sky, okay, then there's a big problem. The problem is that they can't go back. Of course they're going to refuse to take microscopic images of the specimen. Of course they're going to refuse to release high-resolution photos. It's not inexplicable when you realize that they're faking the entire thing. Then it makes all the sense in the world. So while all these people might be confused and all these scientists are out trying to decide and all these publications trying to decide if these are mushrooms, if they're not, if they just realize that there's no craft on Mars, it's the end of the story. It's easy to figure out, you know. Any intelligent adult, adolescent, child, chimpanzee, monkey, dog, or rodent with even a modicum of curiosity would approach, investigate, and closely examine a bowl-shaped structure which appears just a few feet in front of them when 12 days earlier they hadn't noticed it. But not NASA and its rover team, who have refused to take even a single close-up photo. Of course they have. Do people not realize that this explanation that I'm giving you, is quite possibly the only explanation that makes any sense? What if you have a craft on Mars and somebody spots, hey, that mushroom is growing. It wasn't there a few days ago. Now it's a little smaller. Now it's a little larger. Then, of course, NASA would immediately go over there and investigate. That's their job. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to be doing. But what do? Nope, they don't even acknowledge it. You know, they just hope it goes away. Why? Because it calls fraud on the whole thing. You know? The petitioner, Ron Joseph, PhD, claims that the donut-shaped object that appeared in front of the space tank is not, as NASA suspects, a piece of material kicked out by one of the machine's wheels. That makes no sense. Have you ever seen how slow that thing moves? It's going to kick out some piece of rock over to here that wasn't there before? Give me a break. Also, they have funguses similar to those being found on Earth that have sprouted and grown. Yeah, of course. You know. The rock appeared in a 12-day period between camera shots taken by Opportunity. Now, again, what we're talking about is what was found in 2014, hence the name of this video, which is that they found mushrooms on Mars again. This is not the first time. They've already been taken to court over it. And now it just so happens that they're little images from Devon Island, or it could be the Atacama Desert. I don't know where they're at. Okay? Can't tell you where they're taking these pictures. They're taking the pictures from Earth. So, of course, every now and again, we have mushrooms that grow in strange places, and if you're not being careful and you're publishing these images and people are looking very careful because they're interested in what's going on in space and what's this Curiosity rover doing on this mystery planet, no, this is what happens. You get these mushrooms, and they're from Earth, and people are so brainwashed that there's no way they could believe that this hoax could ever be perpetrated. So what do? They have to now believe that these are mushrooms on Mars. And why doesn't NASA just come out and agree and say these are mushrooms? Because then it would take them investigating. Then it would take them taking close-up images. Then it would take them ripping them apart. And before you know it, people would realize this is just a mushroom from Earth. This is nothing more than that. So, this guy was demanding that 100 high-resolution pictures be taken of the object by the Opportunity rover, which, again, would be done without question if the whole idea of Mars and the rover and these things being spotted was true. Now, Ron Joseph, it even has people coming to his house in suit and tie and telling him to drop the lawsuit or else. And yet he still is so strung out on this belief that there's this planet that we're on with a remote control car that he can't get it. So even I've already told him. I emailed him and told him exactly what it is. So these pictures are being taken from Earth. The mushrooms that you're spotting are from Earth. Okay. He lists in his lawsuit many qualifications in his 30 years of science. He's published many articles. He claims to have invented the term astrobiology. A whole bunch of other things. This is judging from his website. BrainMind. I think I have that scheduled up here. Of course, NASA says it's an ongoing legal matter. We are limited in what we can discuss about the filing. It's just ridiculous. Let's see here. Let's go on to this post here. Another post from February 5th, 2014, Life on Mars. That's Ron Joseph's theory, and he wants NASA to investigate that rock. But again, NASA never went back. They just sent somebody to his house and told him, you better not file that report. You better not file that. You better pull back that lawsuit. And as far as I know, he did. And I'll have to do a little bit more research on that and I don't remember if he told me that or if it was something I read. But the lawsuit, I believe, was dropped. So we'll have to do some more research into that. But it's just craziness that people want so bad to believe all this that they'll just run to it. So this is BrainMind, which I believe is might be the official website, I believe, of Ron Joseph, PhD. Is that what it said? Yes, Ron Joseph, PhD. So you'll see here in May 2016, Dr. Joseph provided evidence and reported that 40 experts in fungi, 30 experts in geomorphology, after examining photos of Martian specimens taken by NASA, formed a statistically significant consensus that there is a high probability of life on Mars. No, what they did is they realized that there's a high probability of life on Earth. Congratulations, science. Thank you for telling us that. A lot of us didn't know. I had no way of looking around and figuring out that mushrooms can grow on rocks and grow in the grass and grow coming out of your sidewalk. And yeah, mushrooms are amazing where they can pop up. If you're not paying attention and you're just driving around a little remote control car somewhere in the Atacama Desert, somewhere on Devon Island, well then, yeah, guess what? You might accidentally take some photos of some mushrooms or take some photos of a rock a few days earlier. A few days later, now there's some spores growing on there. Why? Because it's on Earth. It's that simple. But again, people want to believe so badly in this. So yeah, you can check out his website. I'm also going to include this in the description. Okay, grab that. He's got a partial listing of his scientific publications. You can go through these. He also has his biography in here. But again, somebody like this that believes deeply in the ideas of the universe, believes deeply that, of course, here, quantum cosmos and micro-universe, black holes, gravity, elementary particles, the destruction and creation of matter. Somebody who believes that deeply cannot just get it through their head that these images are images of mushrooms on Earth. He has to believe in the universe that he's been taught. And again, many people do. Many people cannot wrap their head around it, that we may have been all lied to because it's too big of a lie. But if you make a lie big enough and tell it enough and teach it to children before they're able to think, then guess what? That lie can quickly become the truth to many people. And then if you teach people that other ideas are ludicrous, then guess what? You have a whole group of people that basically shame you into thinking anything different, or shame you when you do think anything different. Here's the high probability of life on Mars consensus of 70 experts, and I don't disagree with him. That there's these 70 experts have reviewed the photos and said, yep, those are mushrooms. But again, they're mushrooms on Earth. And this is the one thing that all of these experts miss, because they're looking at images taken by the NASA Curiosity rover, the remote control car on Mars. It's ridiculous. So yeah. So anyway, like I said, I don't agree with a lot of what this guy says, but certainly is interesting that he found the mushrooms. He filed a lawsuit against NASA and was told to drop the lawsuit. So as far as I know, I don't believe that lawsuit ever did anything or went anywhere because he dropped it. So instead, he's publishing these papers. He's getting all of these experts, to have a consensus on the fact that there must be life on Mars. Absolutely and totally ridiculous in pretty much every way. But again, people want to believe it. That's the problem. So you can look up this story. It's all over the news right now, or at least I saw it quite a few places. But certainly now that they're finding these images of mushrooms on rocks on Mars, well, now people are coming again and saying, hey, what's going on? These are mushrooms on Mars. They're growing. In different pictures, you can actually see them change sizes. Why were they not here 3 days ago, but now they're here? Well, what does NASA do? They just keep quiet. Why? Because they don't need to say anything. People believe in them. People love them. Doesn't matter what NASA does. NASA doesn't have to go back to the moon. They don't have to go back to the moon. Why? Because people don't require it. People don't even question them on it. The majority of the world allows NASA to exist doing nothing for humanity. Supposedly there's a craft in orbit of the Earth for the last 20 years, 19 years, yet they've never provided a 24-hour video footage of the Earth. Give me a freaking break. Okay? It's just ridiculous. So yeah, mushrooms on Mars again, and they'll be found again as long as they keep driving around Earth and taking pictures and telling people they're from Mars. Well, then people will continue to find mushrooms on Mars because mushrooms grow where? They grow on Earth. So yeah, of course they're in a quandary now because they don't know what to do. They just want to drive around, take pictures of Devon Island, and have people worship them and continue to give them $56 million a day. That's what they want. They want to get $11 or $12 billion to build the James Webb Space Telescope that has continued to be under budget or over budget, continued to be behind schedule. When was it supposed to be launched anyway? 2012, 2015, something ridiculous. Now it's going to be 2022. And of course, I've told this story before. But when you give somebody $10 billion to build a space telescope, and then the deadline comes up and they're not done, so they go back to Congress, and what do they say? Oh, we're not done yet. We need an additional $2 billion. So Congress sits around and says, well, man, we can't cancel this mission now. They've already gotten this far. Here's another $2 billion. It's brilliant. So then they put another 2 years of work into it. They fall behind schedule again. They blame something. We had a new administrator, so we got some new employees and managerial changes, and we need another $2 billion to have that ready. So what does Congress do? They give them another $2 billion because they have to. It's a brilliant plan. NASA's been doing this for 50 years, 60 years, and probably longer, just under a different name. So certainly is interesting. Let's see here. Yeah, so that's interesting. I just wanted to point that out. What else is going on? Everybody might have seen my recent video about this Office of Counterintelligence or some nonsense. And again, people might say, Jaron, you've been caught in a hoax. They caught you. They baited you. They caught you. Can't believe you fell for this. And that's fine. I don't care because let me explain what's going on here. Oh, by the way, I'll show you two things here if we can bring that up. Just real quick, this is an image taken from a Fight the Flat Earth interview on Soundly's channel, and somebody is taking a picture and saw that document, the counterintelligence document that I pointed out, is in his trash. Now, again, could this all be faked? Could they be doing this to basically troll flat earthers? Sure, but that tells me a lot. Also, somebody found the second page. Let me show you that just so you can see what we're talking about. This Office of Strategic Influence, Earth-Shaped Field Assets. Everybody remembers I showed this front page because it was basically left on a live stream by Planar Walk. We got to the end of page 1, and then wouldn't you know it, here comes page 2, which somebody found, which says, just kidding. This is all a hoax to trap the gullible. Nobody gets paid by any governments to post videos because the Earth is not flat. There's no need for anybody to pay anyone to claim the Earth is spherical when it's already known to be spherical. But there is a reason to create fake documents? If you believe this hoax, you should reconsider how you analyze information. Analyze information, I was watching your guys' videos. So you're placing traps. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely a joke. And it says, gullible people are prone to think the department is still in existence, even lacking evidence. We chose the name because there used to be a DOD department by that name that was closed around 2002. Nobody cares. Kind regards, all these losers. Why would anybody watch anything put out by MC Toon, Fight the Flat Earth, Creaky Blinder, Conspiracy Cats, Planar Walk, Al K, Miles Davis, Soundly, Godless Engineer, Rapid X? Never again. That's all that they do for you want to put out a fake document and hope that somebody finds it and brings it up so that you can all laugh and say that person was trolled. Then I want nothing to do with any of these people. Nothing. That means that everything that they say could be fraudulent. How do we trust anything that they're doing? Why would I trust anything, any of Soundly's observations now? If he's willing to fake this document, put it in his trash can, get a glimpse of it on one of his live streams, do people not understand? This is what people want. That's the sad thing. All these guys' fans, all these guys' followers, they're all laughing and having a great old time at this. Why? Because they love to be lied to. They love liars. They love liars. They love Logan Paul to tell lies. They love him to do his little videos and say how funny it was to prank people. They love that. They love prankers. They love liars. Yeah, great for them. All it does is tells me I would never watch another video by one of those guys. Ever. Why would I? Because then I might need to look through their paper and say, well, I don't know if any of this stuff is real. Last time I watched their video, they were ripping up papers, putting them in trash cans, and then when you pointed out, they say, oh no, it was a lie. We were just trolling you. Well, if that's what you're doing, you guys need to get a life, and quickly, because that is ridiculous. Anyway, let's continue on with some, so I showed you that. Oh, I should show you this too. The other interesting thing, if we head over here to Planar Walk's channel now, and again, could this all be part of the ruse? Could they be laughing, having a great old time? Sure, but where's all his videos? People remember I showed 7 years worth of videos the other day. Also, the particular video that we were talking about in that video was taken down less than an hour later. Okay, so again, is this all part of their plan? Is that what these guys sit around and do, is figure out how to troll flat earthers? Great. That means the last thing on their mind is anything to do with truth. It's all lies. It's all pretend. It's all fake. And I want nothing to do with them. No wonder they love NASA. No wonder why. Because NASA lies to their face every day. And they love it. Because that's what they want. That's what they want. So, pretty sad if you ask me. We've got... people can believe in NASA all they want. They can believe in the moon landings when we had images like this that we know is this little track here, and they can project onto this screen on the left whatever they want. And then you look at NASA's footage of the moon landings, and that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like there's some sort of camera on a track going around some screen of the moon landscape. That's what it looks like. You look at the right, and you see this big sphere, and you realize how easy it would be for them to project whatever they wanted onto that sphere. Turn off all the lights in the building and take some video of it from far away. What does it look like? Looks like a sphere Earth, doesn't it? I mean, if you want to believe that people went to the moon in this craft made of tinfoil, construction paper, curtain rods, and some chalices, go ahead and believe it. Believe it. It doesn't matter to me. You can enjoy that all you want. I just want people to at least take a second and think, could we be being faked here? When we find out that they had a 1/8 of an inch thick tinfoil on the walls that anybody could poke their finger through. That's not me saying that. That's NASA saying that. Okay? When you've got images like this of crafts being suspended by wires from some huge apparatus above, and then you go watch the actual Mercury films, and you see that everything looks exactly like this, and the craft turns really rigid to the right and to the left, and it spins backwards, and it's like, well, yeah, you're doing it on this whole apparatus in a soundstage with blacked out walls. But people want to believe it. They want to believe it so much. And how could you blame them? They were all stood in front of giant screens to see, John Glenn enter orbit. And everybody believed it. This reminds me exactly of scenes from 1984. Identical. Okay? But people want to believe in this. People want so bad to think that they live here with all this water hanging upside down and to the right. Oh, Jaron, but it's all being pulled to the center. Yeah, and it's flying through outer space at ridiculous speeds. Where's the stars? How do we not feel any of this movement? Not only we're going 1,000 miles per hour, we're going 66,000 miles per hour around the sun. Nobody's ever felt a thing. Oh, we are also going, 480,000 miles per hour with the sun around the Milky Way galaxy. No one's ever felt a thing. Oh, with the Milky Way galaxy, we're going 2.2 million miles per hour around the Great Attractor. Nobody's ever felt a thing. Do you start to see the point here? They could tell you you're going 10 zillion miles per hour. You're going 13 quadrillion miles per hour, and you can't. Well, what are you going to say? Oh, well, I guess we must be because NASA tells me that. It's true. You'll never feel anything. How would you ever know? How easy is it for them to perpetrate a hoax, a mathematical hoax, when they can just say anything and they just tell you, oh, you wouldn't feel it? I don't know, the atmosphere is all moving the same as the Earth. We're all moving with it together. Well, what if we're going 100 trillion miles per hour? Nope, nobody would feel it. What if we're going 13 quintillion miles per hour? Nope, nobody would feel it. Everything's moving the same speed. We're all moving in uniform. It's all the same. Atmosphere moves the same. What a total joke. Sad. People want to believe in satellites and everything else, even though we know that tons of these things, that these balloons are going up. NASA admits 50 a day. So if they admit that, how many more are going up? Carrying these apparatuses that can weigh up to 8,000 pounds. A Toyota Celica or one of those Honda Civics weigh about 2,500 pounds. So the weight, it can pull the weight of 3 cars and it can remain in the sky for an indeterminate amount of time. I've seen reports of longer than a year. It can also increase its helium when it needs to, or its hydrogen. It can vent a little bit when it needs to come back down. People just want to believe it. That's the thing. We've got these kind of things where people just can't realize that if these things are up on balloons, you can believe all you want about GPS coming from 23,000 miles away. Believe it all you want. Enjoy yourself. It's just what people want to believe. If you believe this is what the Earth used to look like, more power to you. If you believe that this thing flew to space and we just got rid of it, we had 6 of them. They were able to attach to the space station and they just got rid of them. Now we can't go to space anymore on the shuttle because they retired them. What a waste of money. By the way, if you believe this image that's in front of you, no, it's not a true image. It's actually, if you look at the right, it's WonderWorks. It's actually a miniature. It's tiny. It sits on a little person's table. But again, you show an image like this and people will swear it's real, swear it's true. But the image I'm showing you now, it's not real. It's a miniature. It's tiny little WonderWorks. Go to wonderworks.com and see all the little miniatures that they do for space. Then you can look into how Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey was filmed with miniatures and a black box. And then go look at all the NASA footage from the 60s, from the 70s, from the 80s, and ask yourself, why? Why does this look identical? Why is there nothing different? Well, I'll tell you why. But people just want to believe so bad. They want to believe that this is real. So bad that they'll accept the lies. They'll accept anything. This is what they want to be real. You know, what are you going to do when people have that kind of... I mean, this is a ridiculous image. And anybody who believes this is out of their mind. If you believe that this is a gas planet with rocks going around it in a ring formation, but why don't the rocks get pulled into the heavy gravity? What are they doing just hanging out here? Nobody asks these questions. Where did these gas planets come from? Why don't they attract matter? Who chose Earth to be, okay, Earth, you're going to be matter, and Venus, you can be matter, and Mercury, you can be matter. Jupiter, nope, you only can attract gas. You attract gas to your center of your gravity. Earth will attract Earth. Mars will attract rocks. Saturn, nope, you only get to be gas. Sorry, you didn't make the cut. Makes no sense. People love it. Love it so much. They want to believe that this is real. They want to believe that Johnny Five is driving around Mars, shooting lasers into rocks, and we're able from that to determine, where the universe came from. They want to believe that there's Hayabusa landing on asteroids. They want to believe it so bad that they ignore all the evidence that tells you that it's a hoax. Just ignore it. We got evidence like this, and there's others that show you the green screen. If you look at the bottom row of images, second from the right, that is a PNG image, the kind of thing that you do when you're doing green screening. Okay, why would you ever have that up if you're working at the facility where these guys do underwater training? Makes no sense. Why would you even do underwater training? It's the complete opposite of space. And again, people want to believe it. They say, well, I've seen the space station. People are floating in there. Yep, and people float in parabolic flights. But again, people want so badly to believe it that even though the evidence is right there, people can float in parabolic flights. These guys float, and then they think, oh, well, I don't see any cuts, so it must... Oh, you don't see any cuts? You don't think it's possible for them to create... It's not live. They can't create cuts that you wouldn't notice? Oh, boy. Just insane. Again, you got images like this taken at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab of this little thing, which shows the scuba diver coming up and handing these things to the astronaut. But the weird thing is, if you look at the circle that surrounds the Vitruvian Man, up in the upper left-hand corner, you see a picture of a rocket breaking out of some sort of dome structure. But people just ignore it because it's too big of a lie. It's too big of a lie to think about, to worry about, to imagine could possibly be, perpetrated, but it is and has been. So, pretty sad. And again, we have mushrooms on Mars. How many times will it take until the next thing that will happen is somebody will recognize a tree or a leaf? Now, again, I like to think that NASA's a little smarter than that. Probably clear the area before they drive their little cart around. The problem is, again, they don't notice little things like mushrooms. A tree, it's kind of easy to get rid of. It's kind of easy to make sure that doesn't end up in the footage. But when you have things like mushrooms, somebody just dropped the ball. And what happens? Well, NASA just ignores it. Some articles have come out. We've got these scientific publications. Everybody's in, is it mushrooms? Is it not? We've got 70 consensus scientists all say that it is mushrooms. Well, of course, it's mushrooms on Earth. So let's check out the super chats real quick. Thank you very much, Artem. Appreciate that so much. Jaron, reach out to Owen Benjamin. Guy is impossible. I don't know how to reach him, but hopefully he will come along. I think that he knows that we didn't go to the moon, and that's step one. You have to know that in order to even begin to rationalize how in the world somebody could ever think that the Earth's not a sphere. Believe me, I know. Every flat earther knows. We all went through it. So we know exactly the steps that it takes, but you have to start with the moon landing. Because if you think that the moon landing is real, well, then it's a little bit hard to understand. But if you recognize that it was a fraud, and this isn't a fraud that like they lied about in the past and now they tell us the truth or anything. No, these guys are lying to my face today. They lie to my face today. They still say they went to the moon. They still try and rationalize them losing the footage. Okay, they still have excuses for why Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong gave the Dutch a piece of petrified wood and called it the moon. They can still rationalize all these things, and it's easy because everybody wants to believe it. Everybody wants to believe that we went to the moon, so it doesn't matter what answer they get. I mean, get this, people actually accepted the answer that NASA taped over the moon landing footage. You don't see any Globers out there saying anything bad. We know, what do they say? They say, well, you don't understand, man. They had a lot of footage they need to take, man. They had a lot of stuff they need to do, a lot of stuff they need to record, and man, that's all the tapes they had. What a freaking joke. It is by far, not even a close second, the greatest achievement of humanity of all time. By far. And they taped over the footage? Are you kidding me? And the worst part about it is, people believe that. Why? Because they want to believe in the moon landings. They want to believe that man has left Earth, that they're going out into space, and that in the future people are going to go with Elon and live on Mars, and they're going to terraform it, and they're going to drop a nuke, and they're going to get an atmosphere, and it's just all such nonsense. Really, really sad. Next one. Thank you for your hard work with other flat earthers out there exposing all the BS that we get spoon-fed. Plebs are lapping up their science since day one. Well, you can't fault them for believing in science to start with. I mean, that's when you learn the scientific method, makes it very easy to recognize that that's the greatest thing that humans have ever come up with. You know, it's the best way to find the truth. So you're like, yeah, scientific method, fantastic. And then they teach you all these things in quote-unquote science class. And any rational mind, any even non-rational mind, would reach the conclusion that, well, if I'm being taught these things in science class, they've obviously gone through the scientific method. That's clear. And so it's very easy to believe everything that they tell you, because if they're telling you it in science class, then it had to go through the scientific method. But then you start looking into it and you realize this is not the scientific method. When you assume that Venus is the same size as Earth and say, okay, well, we're just going to assume that that light in the sky is the same size as Earth, and then we'll come up with the distance to the moon. To the sun. If you think that's good science, boy, you're wrong. Copernicus thought the sun was 3 million miles away. Newton said it was 12 million miles away. He said it could be anywhere from 12 to 54. What difference does it make? Any distance will prove us just fine. Any distance will... So this is how these guys thought, that they didn't care. It just didn't matter. Because all that they cared about was putting the Earth away from the center, making it a part of the cosmos, and making sure that nothing more important than them, at least now with current science, exists. Nothing more intelligent than them could possibly exist. Artem, again, thank you for 99 cents. Appreciate that. And Tim Drake, thank you very much. So everybody, I appreciate the super chats. That's super kind of you. I appreciate it so much. If you want to donate and not have Google take 30% of it, I recommend that you use my PayPal. That'd be great. PayPal.me/Jaron. And I thought I had a screenshot for that, but I don't know where it went. Maybe this one. Yeah, that'll work. So anyway, you can go to paypal.me/Jaron. If you want to join my Patreon, which would be awesome, really appreciate it. That's patreon.com/jeranism. So yeah, and if you use Venmo, I know not a lot of people do that, but I hear it's what all the cool kids are doing. So if you use Venmo and want to send a little tip, you can do that too, and that's just @jeranism. So appreciate all the super chats. Appreciate you guys watching. I've got a couple videos lined up. I was actually in the middle of one when I came across this article and said, oh boy, I've got to do a live stream real quick to get this video out. But I've got a video coming, Are We Spinning? So check that out. That'll be probably tomorrow if I have time. We do have Globebusters tomorrow, 12 noon Pacific. Please check that out. We're going to be going after a pretty funny video out there. So yeah, definitely check that out. It's going to be a good show tomorrow. And we'll probably be doing a pre-show on my channel as well. So tune into that. It'll probably be about a half hour before the Globebusters goes live. So yes, always check out all that fantastic stuff. But I got a lot of videos coming. Appreciate you guys. As always, appreciate everybody who's sent something to my P.O. box, which has been great. And everybody who's done that with the 2-cent stamp, I think has been hilarious, especially if you go look at all the comments from people saying I'm crazy, there's no possible way that works. And yet I've gotten over, probably 10 or 11 letters from people to my P.O. box at 3044 Merced, California 95344, all sent with a 2-cent stamp. So imagine that. But again, a lot of people just want to believe everything that they're taught. They don't want to do any research for themselves. And it makes sense. Life is easy when you don't. Would be very easy for me just to say, you know what? Earth is a ball. I'm just going to believe it. And I could go back to watching baseball games, and I could go back to not caring about the truth and simply accept what I'm told. And the sad thing is, once you have your eyes opened and once you're not blinded anymore, there simply is no way of going back. It's just until I'm proven, until someone proves to me that we live on a sphere. Again, why hasn't that been done yet? To all the scientists out there, to National Geographic and to the Independent Investigations Group, these places that have money, why don't they go do it? Why isn't there some structure on Earth that's built to show it, where students can go out with their teacher on a field trip and be shown that the Earth's a sphere? But no, rather they just teach it as fact. It's been that way for as long as you remember, even though none of it even makes sense. It just doesn't. But again, people want to believe it. So they're able to be told stories like, well, Aristophanes proved that the Earth was 25,000 miles in circumference in 275 BC. Oh, he did? Oh, fantastic. How smart is humanity? But then it took until 1492. It took 1,700, almost 1,800 years for someone to say, hey, let's sail west. Just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And if you knew that the Earth was 25,000 miles in circumference, then you certainly didn't think you hit India. There's a bunch of places that you would hit before you hit India anyway. Yet people believe it. Ask somebody why Indians are called Indians, and they'll say, oh, it's because Columbus thought he hit India. Laugh in their face. It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense. And also it took 1,800 years for someone to say, let's get in a boat and go west. We know that the Earth is round. We know that it's 25,000 miles in circumference. Aristophanes figured it out. You kidding me? If that happened in 275 BC, by the year 225 BC, somebody would be sailing west. It just makes no sense, but people want to believe it. They want to believe that the history that they're taught in school is true. And again, it just makes no sense. If you think about powerful, elite families, do you think that they sit around at tables and say, how do we educate our youth so that they are smarter? How do we get them to be as smart as us and possibly take our money, possibly take our power away? How do we go about doing that? You think that's really what goes on? I don't. I think families like that sit around and decide, how do we make people dumber? How do we make them incapable of seeing the truth so that we can remain up here, we can remain in power, we can remain in these rich families, we can pass it on to our children, on to our grandchildren, and nobody will ever be the wiser. And again, all you got to look at is, when did books come out? You know, when did the printing press come out? And it's certainly interesting that it coincides exactly with when we learned that the scientific revolution took place. And here came Copernicus, and he changed the world's opinion about the earth, that we're no longer the center and that now we go around the sun. And everybody believes it. Why? Because it was printed in books and it was handed out to people that were mostly illiterate. So it was the first thing they had a chance to read. What is this? Oh, I'm going to learn all these facts about the earth. And again, you just spread that around, and when you make the lie big enough and you tell it often enough, people believe it. It doesn't shock me. It doesn't. So anyway, appreciate everybody watching. I remind you, as always, to do your own research, because when you do, you'll never again believe what you've been taught. Till next time, this has been Jeranism. Peace.